What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life. Saddle up for another episode where we talk about guns and gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I am your host, Michael Milito. First and foremost, I am a servant of God and a follower of Jesus Christ. Trying another format, going to put in the full bio at the end. I might mention a few brief things germane to today's topic. State pistol champion a few times over, won more shooting competitions than I can honestly remember. Blessed to have gotten through being a Marine Corps combat veteran, also Army veteran, also law enforcement, LAPD, and a private contractor. Again, a full bio should be in at the end. Should be enough street cred to establish today's topic. Oh, I should also mention that until fairly recently, I was the general manager for a firearms and training company. Red dots on handguns were in full swing during that time. I'll get into my specific experience in more depth on the red dots. I will admit that I was wrong about red dots on handguns. As the saying goes, I had to figuratively eat a little crow. Don't do that, literally. Not clean per Leviticus 11. Anyway, I was wrong. There may have been several reasons for that. Maybe I was just being a Luddite, just didn't like the new technology. But I have learned the hard way several times, and this will come back into play further in the episode. I don't like trusting my life to things with batteries. It's a pretty overarching theme. I don't like trusting my life to things with batteries. So there's that. Also, I think it was probably a decent opinion when red dots were in their infancy. I don't think they're there anymore, but when they first came out, they weren't great. They have been used for a long time in USPSA competition, which I was familiar with. That's a whole different setup than what we're talking about today. They're generally mounted to the frame, they're much larger, and they don't reciprocate with the slide, so they don't get beat up near as bad as the ones we're talking about, like on carry optics that you would be familiar with on most tactical handguns today. Also, I had lived through the earlier craze of lasers on handguns, and I tried that, and I'll be honest, they're by and large garbage and not worth your time or money. So I felt the same thing about red dots on handguns. Again, I was wrong on that, and I held on to that belief a lot longer than I should have. But I thought if I'm going to rag on something, I should not just do it based on opinion or what I want to be true. This is perhaps a bigger life lesson. I should actually try it for myself. So for a while, I ran a red dot, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. Put one on your training .22 handgun that's most analogous or fairly analogous to your fighting handgun. Put a red dot on your .22, because if you're trying to get familiar with it, .22 is going to save you a lot of money in the long run. Well, I did that. I put it on, trained with it for a while, just getting familiar with it, and then when I actually went to go out, and I have a couple of standards. The first day I remember running the standard with the red dot. One of my standards was draw headshots at 25 yards. Headshots at 25 yards is a pretty precise shot. One of my go-to standards, and I could do it a little bit faster, but I was happy with 3 to 4 seconds. Again, including the draw, 3 to 4 shots in 3 to 4 seconds, depending on the amount of shots. The first time I actually tried that, the first day anyway, I don't know if it was the first repetition, but the first day I tried that with a red dot, I did it in 2 point something. And I thought, oh, okay, I was wrong. Can't argue with math. You can't argue with results like that. And I had been shooting, I was multi-time state pistol champion. I've run iron sights hard and fast. And I had a little bit of familiarity with red dots on a handgun. I had been out shooting them a while. I had been dry firing with them a while before I actually ran the standards, but not nearly as much. And I was faster and more accurate. And if you're faster and more accurate, what part of that is not good? It's one of the arguments, pretty much my carte blanche argument, when somebody that has only ever done tactical shooting, which I've done plenty of that myself, as you might surmise from my background, that competition shooting is not valid for that. And I say, well, which part of that does not apply? The being very fast or the being very accurate? Because I like both those things. And a red dot on a handgun is that. I've changed my mind on red dots on handguns with a couple of caveats. I still don't trust my life to things with batteries. I think it, for me, is a make it or break it on a defensive handgun. If you're talking about putting on a 22 to plink, or you're talking about a range toy that sits in your safe or whatever, that's maybe a different story. I'm not a gun collector. This is gunfighter life, not widget collector life. For a defensive handgun that you're going to trust your life to, for me, it is imperative that I have backup iron sights. Buoys, as the cool kids call them. Backup iron sights. Not just backup iron sights, but co-witness backup iron sights. Even if the red dot goes out, I still need to be able to shoot that handgun with iron sights. So worst comes to worst, I'm just shooting with iron sights. And not only, don't be one of these guys that just puts handgun backup iron sights on there, even co-witness, and doesn't actually shoot those first to make sure that those shoot point of aim, point of impact. Once you get those suppressor height, co-witness, iron sights, and confirm that they actually work and shoot point of aim, point of impact with your carry load, then get a red dot that you can co-witness. For me, that's a make it or break it on a defensive handgun. Gotta be co-witness. That'll change in the future. Maybe they'll get so reliable that I won't have to worry about that, or that won't be a concern. But it is a concern, not just for reliability. Maybe you're way, way better at running red dots than me, and I've been running them for a while now. I'm just drawing from the holster. Yeah, I can just throw it up and there's a red dot there, or actually in my case a green triangle. But if I'm practicing other things, which I like to do because I'd like to practice practical shooting, like drawing 3-round strong hand only, transition 3 rounds weak hand only, laying on my back, laying on my stomach, laying on my side, things like that, where I don't do it thousands of repetitions, then I can't just throw it up there and find the red dot if it's a weird angle, like I'm laying on one side with my weak hand shooting. And you can use those iron sights to guide that handgun. And once you get semi-close, then you can pick up the red dot. But if you're laying on your back, trying to shoot between your legs, you throw it up there and you see no red dot, because that's not a position you practice often, and your whole body angle is weird, your arm angle is weird. You're just what I would call fishing for a red dot. I don't want that in a gunfight. I know how to find iron sights. I can look for the iron sights if I'm doing that. It's easier to pick up. And then once they get close, then that red dot will appear, assuming it's still working. And I say red dot as a generality. Actually, only one of my handgun sights. Actually, no, none of my handgun sights have a red dot. That's just a common vernacular. So there's that. Co-witness backup iron sights. That's a must for me. I said I don't trust my life to things with batteries. And if the optic has a battery, if the battery goes out, then I still have iron sights. So my life is not dependent on that red dot. And I'm not going to do the thing where they buried the lead at the end. I'm going to tell you what I have chosen and what I run that's on my hip right now. I have 2 kind of basic go-to day-to-day carry handguns that have red dot, or that have optical sights. And what I have chosen for those is a Trijicon RMR without the batteries. They make a Trijicon RMR that runs off of radiation, tritium, and fiber optic, much like the military ACOGs that I ran in Iraq. They run on tritium and fiber optic. They are not beholden to a battery. There is no battery. I say again, there is no battery. As long as radiation is a thing, ambient light is a thing, they will work, assuming they're not like completely smashed. And on that note, one of the things that changed my mind on red dots is I was doing wind sprints with my carry gun, which I would encourage you to do. Stand by, my Rhodesian Ridgeback demands attention. Okay, so I was doing wind sprints with my carry gun on, and my retention screw got loose, and my carry gun flew out of its holster and went sliding across some rocks. It landed on the optic. It landed so hard that I dented my barrel and got a new barrel. For my gun, the optic, I know it landed on the optic because I could see it and all the marks on the top of the optic, but the optic was fine. There's a small scratch in one of the corners of the glass, which doesn't bother me at all, and it was solid. And after that, it kind of changed my mind on the robustness of modern, good quality optics. My argument was, oh, if you drop it, it might break. Somebody pointed out to me, and they were right, in a training class that I took, you can drop iron sights and they break. And they're absolutely right. I have seen iron sights break, come loose, all kinds of stuff. you've never seen that or been around that or had that happen to you, you probably haven't shot a ton, because it happens. So the idea that iron sights are 100% is not valid. I think good quality, robust optics are every bit as robust and sturdy as iron sights. So there's that. So again, if you're looking for one to bet your life on, I can't recommend anything more than the one that I actually carry and bet my life on. And that's a Trijicon RMR. They make a couple of different models with, I like green, always have with competition shooting, like a green fiber optic, so it was an easy transition to me. I like the one with a big green triangle. If I want to shoot fast, I have a big green triangle. If I want to shoot precisely, I shoot for the very top of the triangle, and that's where I zero to. I like green. They make other colors. They even make dots. A bunch of different models. But again, I'm going to recommend that you go with the tritium fiber optic. Why? No batteries. Also, don't have to worry about adjustments. You don't have to worry about, is my red dot too bright? Is it not bright enough? It auto-adjusts based on ambient light. The only time that can be an issue is if you're in a really dark environment and shooting into a really, really bright environment. Almost never a thing, but it is a thing, so I'm going to be honest about that. And again, I said, if you're going to do this, run backup iron sights. So that weird circumstance happens, and I'm talking it has to be pretty drastic to not see the green triangle at all. If that situation does arise, then I can just shoot my backup iron sights. I can just literally use my iron sights that are co-witnessed in the optic. Trijicon RMR tritium fiber optic. And I talked about good quality. And this is going to bring up another point that I think is really important. I'm cheap by nature. I grew up poor. So that's kind of my default. I have to fight against that. In the words of a modern day lyricist, Kid Rock, I ain't straight out of Compton, I'm straight out the trailer. I'm acquainted with poverty, by God's grace. He delivered me out of that. But kind of in that growing up, I kind of look for bargains where I can. There's a time and a place for that. There's good things about that. If I like chili lime peanuts, which I do, why would I buy those at Whole Foods when I could buy those at Dollar Tree? That being said, this is not a place to cut corners. This is not a place to look for the bargain red dot. This is not the place to try out that new red dot that came on the market that's half the price. If you want to mount an optic like that on a 22, go for it. If you want to just try it out on a gun that you got that just happens to be cut for an optic, but it's not going to be one that you carry, it's not going to go in your baby bug-out bag, it's not going to go on your hip, it's not going to go in your truck, you're going to bring it to the range to try it. See if you even like shooting with a red dot. Okay. Do not skimp. Think this really is a place where you get what you pay for. Alright, so I talked about the Trijicon RMR tritium fiber optics. Let me talk about the next one. And this is the least expensive that I would go. Not cheap. A lot of dirt cheap optics on the market. Probably go on Amazon and find one for under $100. I would not trust my life to it. However, ones that I have seen proven out, as much as I don't like to recommend Chinese stuff, if the other ones are out of your price point, this might be a valid option for you. And that is the Holosuns. Caveat, the Holosuns with the solar. Okay, I said I don't like trusting my life to things with batteries. These have batteries, but they also have solar. The batteries last a very, very, very long time. You also have solar. If I'm going to run one of these, I'm going to run one with the solar. Again, if it's for a defensive fighting handgun. I've seen and been around enough of these that I know that they are good, especially for the money. They are good for the money. And you have to get one for whatever footprint you're going to run. I'll probably get into that in a little bit, but they make even the really small ones now. They make the kind of the standard, the 507s or whatever. But get one of the footprint that you want, one that you're sure is going to mount properly, co-witness. You can get one of the solar models. They make green, they make red. I don't know if this is still the case. It doesn't really apply to me when I run green in the tritium fiber optic. But for emitted light, I believe it takes less energy to make red than it does green. So look at the battery life. I said I like green, but if the battery life is 2 or 3 times longer on red than green, it might sway me towards the red. So look at that. Don't just assume because one's red and one's green, they're everything else is equal. Look at the green and see what the battery life is, and look at the same model in red and see what it is. Because if it's way, way more in red, again, I'd rather pull it up and see a dot, whatever color it is, if I'm trying to shoot, than pull it up and see no dot, because my batteries are dead. That's the other one that I would recommend. The other ones I've seen that don't really have any problems, and I believe they're the ones the military specified on, Leupold, Delta Point. Leupold, Delta Points, they take a battery. They're really good quality optics. I have never run one personally, but I have been around, like I said, the industry a little while, and I have never heard of anybody ever having a problem with them. Could you get basically a Romeo Pro or a Romeo 1 or whatever, the SIGs, and I have a SIG on my hip right now, Handgun. For optics, I don't recommend them. You get basically on paper what looks like the same thing as the Leupold. Yeah, I'm just telling you, in my experience, they are nowhere near as reliable. Have seen those have issues. I would not trust it unless, like I said, it's for a 22 or something like that, a training gun. I'm not trusting my life to a SIG Romeo optic. I'm just not doing it. Not at this point. Maybe they'll get better. Maybe those issues will go away. The SIGs, I know they make a lot of really good stuff. Again, the Handgun on my side right now is SIG. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not sponsored by SIG. I hope you appreciate about this podcast that I'm not beholden to some corporation. I'm not some corporate shill. I give you an honest opinion. SIG makes a lot of good stuff. Their optics, in my opinion, aren't one of them. I don't even know who makes them, if they just stamp their name on there or not. But I don't trust them. You do what you want with that information. The Leopolds, or Leupold, however you want to pronounce it, I like them. I trust them. The military specified that. I'm sure they tested it quite a bit more than I would test it for my carry gun, because they have a lot more access to huge quantities of ammo or whatever. But the Leupolds, they're good optics. Burris. I like Burris. I like a lot of the stuff Burris makes. One of my go-to hunting rifles has a Burris scope on it. Burris has made good stuff for a long time. I, again, don't recommend their handgun sights. As much as I like American companies and things like that, I think the Holosun, honestly, is better. And if it comes to life, I'm going to try and buy American when I can. I run a Trijicon. If I couldn't afford a Trijicon or something, I would run the Holosun. I think they're more reliable. I just do. The Vortexes, yeah, they have a good warranty, but the warranty's not going to do me much good in the middle of a gunfight if I'm not breathing at the end of it to claim the warranty when it breaks. I've seen those things have issues. I've had people that I knew were probably above average shooters. I had to go away from those and go to something else. I don't know that I could say that about Leupold or Trijicon. And just like I tell you the handgun rule, I know new optics come out all the time. Just like I tell you with a firearm, don't trust your life to something unproven. Don't be a beta tester in a gunfight. I like for something to be out. My general rule is 3 years. If it has issues, somebody will find out about it. They'll get worked out in the first couple of years. Many new models, even from really good companies, Glock, Smith & Wesson, the best companies out there. SIG, a lot of their new models have issues. I don't want to find that out on my carry gun. The same thing holds true for optics. Get a model that's been out a while. Don't get the next new whiz-bang thing. Get a proven design if you want to trust your life to it. The Springfield versions, I don't trust their handguns, let alone their optics, so there's that. When I was professionally gunfighting, and even before that, but when we had legit, pretty strenuous courses to go through, I never saw a single one of those make it through without breaking. I'm not talking optics, I'm talking handguns. Don't test their handguns, I'm probably not trusting their optics. And before you rag on me about that, go take a training class where you're running a couple of thousand rounds through it in a week and see if one of the pins don't pop out and mess up your sights, or the little spring in the back strap safety doesn't break and then the gun is literally inoperable. Actually do it before you say, oh, Springfields are great. Go actually run them hard. I was a cop, when I was a contractor, I literally, not some of them, I didn't see a single solitary Springfield handgun last and make it even to the end. One that I'm really not going to form an opinion on is the Primary Arms. Primary Arms makes a lot of good stuff. I haven't ever run their handgun red dots, and I honestly don't know anybody that has. Well, maybe they're a hidden gem in the handgun optics world. I don't know. I'm not going to recommend them. I'm not going to rag on them either because I don't know with actual experience if they're any good or not. I do have a Burris Fast Fire that I had on a handgun that is now mounted on a shotgun. It's good with a couple of caveats. I have an older generation. You have to take the optic off to replace the battery, which means you got to reconfirm 0 on it, right? Not a fan of that. So the battery life is not great, so if you forget and leave it on, which I often do, that can be an issue. Not one of the ones that last for like 10 years or whatever. The newer generations, I think, have fixed that, where you don't have to take the battery off to change it, which is an improvement. I think it's an okay optic, again, on the Burris, but it wouldn't be on my go-to fighting handgun. I'd say the same thing for Sight Mark. I have a Sight Mark. I got it for a really good deal. It was like one of their closeout models. I have it mounted on a Training 22 handgun. It's been fine on that. I have run the batteries dead on that by forgetting to shut it off. However, I don't have to take the complete optic off to change the battery on that. Batteries on things aren't cheap though. Again, I have it mounted on a 22. Feel very confident with it on there. I would not mount it on a go-to fighting handgun. I'm not convinced. On the mounting part, let's talk about mounting, because not all mounting systems are created equal. I think we're very much in the beta testing phase of handgun optic mounting systems. I hope one day they'll standardize on one like full-size mounting system and then maybe one subcompact mounting system. The size that will be on a SIG 365 or the size that would be on a standard Glock, right? Those two sizes, and then have one mounting footprint. Right now you got a bunch of different footprints. You got Trijicon RMR, you got Delta Point, you got a SIG different version, you've got the Doctor footprint. There's all kinds of different footprints. And I dealt with a lot of these when I was managing that firearms and training company. Not all mounting systems are created equal. If you want my best suggestion, literally take the handgun, have it cut directly, like cut a big chunk out of the slide, and have it cut directly for the size and footprint of the optic you want to run. If you're going to run a Trijicon RMR, which again is my number one recommendation, have the slide cut for it and have it cut for 2 big beefy screws, the biggest, beefiest screws you can fit pretty much in that optic, and screw it directly down with 2 screws directly into the metal of that slide. That is your best option. If you're not going to do that, the SIG like M17, M18 military mounting system is not the worst one I've ever seen. It's better than average. The Glock one, the Glock factory one, I consider one of the worst ones. I think it was kind of an afterthought, like, oh, people are wanting these, and how do we make this work? I think it was well thought out. I was going to run a Glock, and I don't particularly like Glocks. I was going to run one as my go-to carry gun. I would get it directly cut. I don't like that mounting system. Their factory option for a mounting system. A lot of the Gucci Glocks, aftermarket Glocks, have different ones, but the Glock factory mounting system, some of those screws are a little on the light side for what I would like. One of the best factory options I've seen and best mounting systems that come straight from the factory is the Canik. I was not a big fan of Canik when they first came out. I thought they were some Turkish garbage, to be honest. But they were around long enough, and I've been around them long enough and seen them run enough that I really do think they're good. And when I had to mount quite a few optics, their mounting system is rock solid. It does not seem like an afterthought. It is big. It's got a big beefy rib running down the center. And it's just, I think it's well thought out. I think it's a good system. I think they put some R&D into what's a good mounting system. Not just how can we get a optic to stay on the top of this slide, but how can we get a good rock solid mounting system. And of all the factory ones, the Canik honestly is the best one that I've seen. SIG is probably second best. Glocks I'm not a big fan of, and there's a bunch more, but those are the ones I have quite a bit of experience with as far as actually mounting optics on. But again, if you decide this is the route you want to go after doing some testing with it or whatever, I would really recommend taking your go-to handgun and having it cut for the optic that you want. Instead of 4 screws, you'll have 2, and you can usually get some pretty big, beefy screws in there. You can cut some out of the slide so it's so precise that that optic is really not going to get jarred back or forth because it fits really tightly into that slide. There's a little bit of added protection to that optic. Anyway, those are some thoughts on red dots on handguns. I hope this was helpful. If you're looking to get into this world or navigate this kind of frontier in handgun shooting, I hope this was helpful. When you hack through that jungle of red dots and options and mounting systems and all the things that go along with that. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this content, I hope you'll consider becoming a patron. Patrons Get a lot of really cool insider content, patron-only videos just for the patrons. They get episodes early and a lot of times commercial-free and unedited. They also have the option to be part of a Patreon chat. We have like an insider chat, and they can literally just ask me questions. We talk to each other all the time, and it's not just me helping them. It's a community where we help each other. If you've ever thought like, oh, I wonder what he thinks about this, if you were part of the Patreon chat, you could just ask me. Perhaps it's something that I don't know a lot about, like scout rifles, but we have what I would consider a scout rifle expert in there. And you get to support a show that's not a corporate show. It's not a commercial for a certain gun company or whoever sponsors me and chooses to give me money, and I'm going to tell you their product is great when it's garbage. Appreciate that honesty. Hopefully you'll consider becoming a patron. With that, I want to roll into the tactical verse of the day because I don't want you to miss out on that. If you want to skip out on the bio because you've heard it before, you don't care, you can skip out after that, but I don't want you to miss the tactical verse of the day. We talked a lot about optics and vision and seeing. Whatever kind of optic you're looking for or sight picture you're looking for, don't lose sight of what you really should be looking for. Jesus. John 8, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but have the light of life. All right, with that, I'm going to plug in the bio and then a tactical tip at the end. So, who am I? Who is this person talking to you from across the internet? Why should you listen? First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast Regional Rifle Champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Milito. Alright, gunfighters, your tactical tip of the day. Many of you that run these optics, they are going to take batteries, and most of them take that small flat watch battery type 2032s, 1632s, whatever the case may be. They're small, they're flat. You might want to spare one or two in your range bag. You may also want one on you. Say you're going on like a trip or something like that, or just day to day. You're going on a road trip. You're not going to carry your whole range bag. They're small, they're light, they don't take up a lot of space. They're flat. You know what else is flat? The base pad on your magazine, probably. You can just take a piece of duct tape, take one of these batteries, stick it to the duct tape, lay your magazine flat on top of it, and then trace around it with a knife, an X-Acto knife, a razor blade, whatever, to the bottom of the base pad and stick it on there. You drop that magazine, may you smash a battery? Yeah, who cares? Throw it away. They're not that expensive. But if you go do your daily dry fire on your road trip or whatever, which you should be doing, right? Hopefully. Go to see that red dot no longer works. Well, now you at least have a spare on your person. That's your tactical tip of the day. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.